Alrighty, so I wanted to talk about, we've been talking about a lot of shitheads lately. There's been a lot of stuff wrong in the government, in the world, in protests, in ICE. We might not even get to that. But I don't want it to go underappreciated or underreported that we out in the civilian class are not the only ones slowly losing our minds. In particular, there's one man who has been making a name for himself by just going out of his goddamn gourd. Somebody who I'm not sure if he was kind of always like this and now he is just completely unhinged, unbound, untethered by the corporate life afforded to him by a major show on Fox News. Or if this is something that has slowly gotten worse. But much like Candace Owens, I feel Tucker Carlson has been in a spiral that, despite reaching millions, has somehow gone unnoticed by both mainstream conservatism and detractors in the liberal media. Which is why I wanted to call attention not just to this video, but another one he did, hypothesizing America getting ready to go into a civil war. But before that, we need to watch a video about how Tucker Carlson thinks the Antichrist may be among us. And also the elites are doing rituals.
Something or other was demonic. Use the word demonic. It cannot have been more than 6 years ago when I was completely...
Okay, wait. Before I do that, I need to bring up... We looked at it last year. Tucker claimed to have been assaulted by a demonic entity in the middle of the night. I need to preface that. He claims, and this has been part of a broad, like, Christian turn he's had, where he doesn't actually, he's in this nebulous, incredibly American space to be, where he doesn't, I don't know if he goes to church. I don't know how much of the Bible he's read. But he still, professes being a white Christian and all this shit. So another thing, and I'm going to talk a lot of preface, and then I'll let Tucker kind of speak for himself. Another thing he does a lot is this pseudo-philosophical analysis, where he'll say stuff like this. He'll present an argument in terms of, it speaks to this, that there's this underpinning, that people just kind of know these things. And of course, you should ask yourself, okay, what people? Who's he talking about? What is he, like, does he give any examples of this? He almost always will not. He just kind of makes an assertion that to his audience might sound like, yeah, there are people out there. Damn, it does seem like a lot of people are calling things demonic. Maybe that does speak to a universal truth of some kind. And you get a lot of this kind of like almost Jordan Peterson level analyses where it's like, yeah, no, we're talking about universal truths and all these things that we all secretly know and hold dear, and the Jungian archetypes that we ascribe ourselves to. Like, it's just boilerplate, basic bitch first level philosophy. But he then uses it in service of like blatant Christo-fascist paranoia and propaganda. Important to remember moving forward.
You, and I hope you'll explain this, and I'll get out of the way in a second, but you kind of stumbled into an extended research project on this topic. Are there actual occult connections to Hollywood, to political figures, to technological advances, to the leaders of our society? Are some of them actually practicing occult religion?
Yeah, Tucker, it's about as weird as you said. Some would say, I think we're going to find out even weirder.
This shit sucks, dude, so much. I hate this. I hate this fucking... Oh! I'm not even like a country bumpkin. And I say that term, again, affectionately, coming from farmer stock. I'm not even like about that life. But there is something that just is... It's so fake. It's so fucking hollow. It's like stolen redneck valor. For people who don't know, Tucker is an heir to the Swanson family. The kid grew up fucking rich. Like, rich. So rich, nobody told him how stupid a bow tie looked until he was well into his 30s. Right? Like, you have to be a level of insulated from criticism to not hear that from anybody until Jon Stewart.
So at some point in 2022, I'd always had a dream project of mine, just a casual interest of doing a show about rock and the occult, about the secret history of all these things that people are generally interested in, but there's never been a kind of scholarly, in-depth hearing from everybody, not too biased take on of, Jimmy Page being into Aleister Crowley being on the Beatles albums, things that, maybe we can discuss.
Oh my God.
So there's always interesting, actual weird stuff going on.
That's because it was all bullshit, dude. It's because even at the time, people knew it was just posturing. It was just theater.
I brought in legit people. I brought in some of the best critics we have in rock to do a show that would, we'd have Christians and pastors. We'd have occultists. One of my experts on the show was this guy, Mitch Horowitz, who I think.
Okay, so here's the thing. When you get into these ideas about, like, okay, we have Christians and pastors, and then you have occultists, it comes into this issue where Christians and faith groups sincerely believe the shit that they're into. There are people who deeply believe that there are real battles between angels and demons, that Christ died for everybody, and at one point he'll come back on the last day and all that shit, right? And then there is the other side of things where I'm not saying there aren't genuine occultists. There are certainly people who practice witchcraft. There are certainly people who practice magic. But the idea of this, the archetypical Satanist, the LaVeyan Satanist, is theatrical, and it always has been. People like Anton LaVey were very fucking clear about that shit. So you cannot compare the two, because they are not coming from an even footing.
Silicon Valley, there's some weird kind of Aleister Crowley cults there, or, while researching, one of the guys we'll talk about, Nick Land, who's huge in Silicon Valley, his influences were identical with some of the hardcore industrial music, goth music, psychedelic guys in the 80s, guys that I was researching because this is hardcore occult stuff. So for me, Tucker, at some point I was like, and it kept occurring to me, why, when I'm researching this show and also hearing about what's going on in Silicon Valley with weird stuff, why am I hearing about the same stuff? And why are these people, again, you think of Silicon Valley, you think of the modern, elite as being secularists, rationalists, people who have a no religion for me, thank you, attitude towards stuff. Why are they into the same stuff that Kenneth Grant, Genesis P. Orridge was into, Brian Geist and William S. Burroughs? Why are they into the same weird stuff? So that was, to answer your question, that was the entry point into this for me.
It's interesting. So here's the distinction that I make in my mind. And it's between people who are participating in occult practices and have no idea that they are.
Right.
People who are, participating in abortion and don't see it, don't understand it as what it is, which is a child sacrifice ritual as old as Canaan, who are using.
What? That was so. Yeah, somebody in chat, I didn't quite know how to process that because that was so casual. Look, I realize when you get into a certain space, you get into a certain level of conspiratorial thinking, this shit does become common parlance. It becomes like just offhanded remarks to be like, as we all know, people think that abortion is just abortion, but it's actually an ancient baby sacrifice ritual. Is like, no, I didn't. Explain that. Expand on that. What do you mean by that? Hey, Tucker? Hey, Tuckums? Tucky Tum Tums? What the fuck, dude? You're just gonna. Okay. No, we're just. All right. Yep.
Hallucinogenic drugs, which are clearly a portal for demonic possession.
Sure.
The
word witchcraft.
Okay, fucking flashbanged as soon as I start again. Again, just it's the cadence with which he so confidently says drugs, which are clearly a portal for demonic possession. So it's just like, oh yeah, as we all know, drugs clearly a portal for demon possession.
That's always been there's a kind of lurid story behind the witch's broom in terms of what she's doing to work herself up into that state. But yeah, it's all about.
But she's doing it intentionally. I guess that's the distinction that I would make. In a secular country, a free to be you and me country, there are a lot of people who are doing things because they're fun or interesting, or everyone around them is doing them, and they don't understand the spiritual consequences. But then there's another category, and this is the dividing line in my head. There's a category of people who are seeking power from supernatural forces that they acknowledge are absolutely real.
Right.
Okay, so I can't skip over that without, because I feel like everybody in the chat, you're still understandably you're still wrapped up in the baby abortion sacrifice and the Kabbalah and all that stuff. We can't skip over the fact that what he just referenced was witches working themselves up into a place to be receptive to spirits by masturbating with a broomstick is what Captain Mophead McChin just said.
So maybe we start with just a very straightforward explanation of who Nick Land is. You've referred to him twice.
Yes, yeah. So let me see. Nick Land is kind of essentially the Timothy Leary of the 90s and 2000s. He's the Velvet Underground of Brian Eno of philosophers. No hits, incredibly influential.
Okay.
So, the thing is with Land...
He's a philosopher.
He's a philosopher. He worked in the philosophy department of Warwick University over in England, in the UK, in the early 90s. But Simon, he interviews Nick Land, and in his article, it's very lengthy,
always just looks... Tucker always just has a look of perpetual confusion. Like, he just always looks like he doesn't understand what conversation he's in at any given point. Like, next time it cuts back to him, watch him.
Possessed by 3 or 4 entities at the same time. That's the legend. We don't know. Take what you will about any of this. But, that 3 or 4 entities at the same time. He's bringing up current...
Spiritual entities.
Yeah, demons. He's really into demons. He brings up the 93rd Current, which is the name of a band, Current 93, which is Aleister Crowley's Thelema. And they're drawing pentagrams. They're renting out Aleister Crowley's house. And so that was a huge moment for me where I was like, wait a second. This guy that's very big in tech, very big on the future of AI, my buddy is interviewing him, and he's...
I love... Oh, God. It's another example of how fucking peasant-brained everybody is, that they're like, wait a second. This guy who's really into AI is also rambling about demons. Is AI demons? Instead of stopping to go like, yeah, it's probably because the same people who are susceptible to being AI dumbasses are also susceptible to thinking they can be possessed by 4 demons. Like... You look at a thing and go, yeah, that checks out. That somebody who would believe in one stupid-ass bullshit thing believes in another stupid-ass bullshit thing. Instead of going, actually, what if not only is demons real, but what if demons is AI? I think we're onto something. Fuck, man. 4 demon chests. Inside of you are four demons
that I know about from this research here. What's he doing in AI? So
what are Nick Land's ideas?
Well, that was I went on.
Is he still a philosophy professor?
Yeah, you can catch him on X and Twitter.
Oh, a worm? A worm? Nick Land is an English philosopher best known for popularizing the idea of accelerationism. I said accelerationalism. Sorry. Cybernetic Culture Research Unit, a theory fiction collective co-founded by Land and cyber-feminist philosopher Sadie Plant. Post-structural theory and leftist thinker like Batali, Marx, and Deleuze and Guattari, as well as sci-fi, rave culture, and the occult. So basically, a Silicon Valley tech bro who is up his own butt is what I'm seeing. Here's the thing. Every generation has these people. You've already heard him talk about Crowley. I've talked about LaVey. Every generation has these people, and whether they're charlatans, whether they actually believe the shit that they're hawking, whether they have huffed so many of their own fumes, they've done so much DMT, had so many trips with other people that they're like, hey man, what about this? These people are not unique. They come around every so often. In another time and place, people were too busy tilling their farms to pay attention to this dumb bullshit, and they would become hermits, right? Modern day, they somehow get to become philosophers. Following a period of amphetamine abuse, he suffered a breakdown and disappeared from public view. Clearly somebody we can all listen to and trust. He moved to China, reemerged as a figure on the political right, becoming a foundational thinker in the reactionary movement known as the Dark Enlightenment. His writings have explored anti-egalitarian and anti-democratic ideas. So, after his breakdown, he completely changed his entire philosophy and worldview, moving from leftist technocrat to far-right anti-democracy. Again, somebody obviously you can, just a voice you can trust.
one tweet at a time. I think he's a Xenocosmography. I think is the tweet is his handle, and used to be outsideness. But he can be pretty pretty brilliant and smart and has some good takes. But in his way. But
so we just went over a brief summary. What are his good takes, buddy? You can't say somebody who believes in what he calls hyper racism, anti-democracy, corporate monarchy, and you're like, yeah, this guy's onto some stuff. What?
So he eventually, he says his work was entirely channeled. So, channeled as an automatic writing. So this goes back centuries, but 100 years ago, you had poets like W.B. Yeats. You notice me struggling to make sure I pronounce that correctly. He had his wife do a channeling to write his book. A channeling means essentially you're possessed to write this. That this didn't come naturally.
This is something that writers, authors, psychiatrists for years and years have known about. You get into a kind of flow state sometime when writing. This is something. So because I'm doing a video on, I've been putting together a video essay on the dream symbology of floating rocks in video games and why so many games use floating rocks. What can they possibly symbolize? How do we parse potential dream meaning when dreams are usually not like they're usually intrinsic to a person to parse their meaning, as opposed to something that people are trying to decide to have meaning. And so to do this, I've been reading a lot of Freud's work on dreams, because Freud was one of the first psychiatrists to really delve into like the psychiatry and meaning of dreams, but also the self-assessment behind them. And one of the things that Freud advocates for is keeping a dream journal and trying to be as uninhibited in your writing process as possible. And to do that, he actually cites I don't remember who the author was, but he cites an older writer who would do the same thing. Like you write, it's, God, what the fuck is it called? It's actually a very common writing technique. What the fuck is it? It's, like stream of consciousness writing is simply writing whatever comes to you without trying to, and the way Freud talks about it is without trying to overanalyze it, without trying to critique it as you're writing, just like idea comes out, like whatever. Which is an incredibly, incredibly common thing for all writers.
From you, that maybe
some outside force takes over your hand,
demons,
your
angels,
tongue.
yes. And so his work on AI, which is incredibly influential, he said was an outside force to write this. And
Nick Land is a proponent of AI.
Oh yeah, no, he's a proponent of AI, but his philosophy is essentially that we are building this AI that's going to become not only just super intelligent, but it eventually becomes so advanced that it gains omniscience, it gains omnipotence, and it becomes this superhuman godlike thing that transcends humanity, eventually destroys humanity. And he gets really into the Book of Revelation, ends up becoming the demons from the Book of Revelation. The real thing with Nick Land.
Wait, what becomes the demons of Revelation?
AI does. The AI that we are building the demons from the Book of Revelation with AI, and
that's Nick Land's position.
But I should say too, it's the position of a lot of these guys.
Okay, again, they all get the same idea. That's not demons. That's just a bunch of self-obsessed messianic complexes interacting with one another and being like, damn, what if we're really like, hey, maybe it's actually a little bit of their fucking conscience taking over for a half second and then being like, damn, maybe I am making the world a worse place. And it just comes through like that from their subconscious. Like, this is fucking... common side effect. Everybody who's done Ket is like, oh, fuck, Rise of the Machines, right?
So people take ketamine and they all have the same vision. Or species of the same vision.
Enough of them do to make it very strange and alarming. That's the thing, that one of the main influences on both the show I was building, these guys, Brian Geisen, William S. Burroughs, his creative partner, he would say the thing is about getting high and about doing psychedelics is that, you can spot people, eventually who are on the same drug and you're both getting the same ideas. Some drugs, he said, increases telepathy, it puts them on the same wavelength. If they're an atheist, they don't believe any of this. Like you're saying, the fact that people are taking these drugs and they're very powerful and they work in tech and they are getting the same ideas, the same fears. They think that in some cases they're talking to the same entities. There are books now about if you take DMT, if you encounter this machine elf, be wary of this. They're encountering the same stuff. That's an interesting
machine elf,
just biologically, regardless of what people
like ancient.
Again, you can't. It speaks to. I really wanted to watch this because I haven't seen this, but I really wanted to watch this to talk about and to illustrate how far down the rabbit hole Tucker has fallen. And I feel like, okay, let's put aside the Moloch of it all. Let's put aside the ancient sacrifice of the babies and all that shit. The fact that this grown adult man just unironically used the term machine elf. And Tucker sat there with that typical, like, vaguely dazed look and just took it in like it was the most normal thing in the world. The dude is talking about, like, a Phyrexian vat keeper being seen by Silicon Valley tech douchebags, and Tucker's like, well, yeah, that makes sense, actually.
Sacred art has the same images
Right.
created on different continents at different periods. They couldn't have had contact with each other, so why are they drawing the same Birdman or the same purse? Like, it because they're seeing the same visions, which suggests that those visions are.
It's because humans draw from the same instinctual experiences. It's why there are common themes to dreams, despite cultural differences, educational differences, complete differences in how you're brought up, where you're brought up, your lifestyle, what you go through, what a bracket you are in economically. How people will still have dreams about, like, their teeth falling out or being naked in front of crowds of people. Like, this is what I was talking about with this pseudo-philosophical drivel, where he is making these broad assertions and then just extrapolating from that things that he holds up to be, or holds up to the audience to be like, well, these are obviously your universal truths. How else do you explain that there are, cultures who have vaguely similar fucking ideas? It's like, well, how obviously there have to be, like, psychic ghosts or some shit. It bears calling attention to the idea that these topics flow freely from one to another, that they will go back and forth from talking about machine elves to then talking about the state of the country. I don't want to say on Tucker's part this is by design. Like, I personally, I don't think Tucker is such a conniving operator as to, like, try and engineer a sense of flow to lull his audience into complacency and be more susceptible to this shit. I think it is more that they are in a state of normalcy for this kind of shit, where they see these things as all connected, right? It bears repeating that Tucker Carlson is somebody with close proximity to Trump, to the administration, to many people in the administration. He is still a big fucking name in the conservative sphere. And I think that speaks to how much this insane bullshit has been normalized, that he is able to say this stuff and nobody hears about it. That he is able to entertain these conversations about machine elves. I can't get over the machine elves. That he is able to entertain conversations about machine and then be like, yeah, so let's talk about the state of the country and why everything's messed up. Is because for people like him, they believe all of this shit and the fact that it all intertwines.
And this is something that every musician knows too. That's why they take drugs, is to tap into the spiritual.
So I didn't know that. I thought that people took drugs. I mean, I took drugs.
People take drugs for all kinds of
I'll
reasons.
admit it, but I always assumed that those insights are really mostly fake insights, but all that stuff came from within. That it was. I mean, I bought the Freudian analysis of it. That you only use 10% of your brain, and there's this whole sort of primordial sea in your head of thoughts and visions that you're not in touch with on a daily basis, but that drugs thin the membrane. But it never occurred to me a single time until middle age, when I started to see reality, that actually they're coming from outside you.
Well, and Tucker, that's a great point. That's something that any psychedelic.
No, it's
kind
not.
of a double standard thing, a deal where when talking about drug use, they'll always say, "Well,
This is God." It's so like in a way, it's actually quite fascinating how they have to, like, try and ascribe a scientific method to anti-intellectualism, to an anti-scientific standpoint. It is kind of fascinating how they have to be like, well, I thought it was this kind of Freud, which isn't. It's not a great summation of what Freud believes, because what he's talking about, he's referring to the subconscious and or the collective unconscious. Do I have that back? Yeah, the collective unconscious and the subconscious. But what she's basically hand-waving away decades of psychiatric and psychological analysis and study and iteration to be like, well, now I know it's coming from somewhere else. It's coming from something else, and of course, it's got to be something deeper out there. That there's, it's coming from demons, maybe, like fucking
hard enough that there is a realm that exists outside of us over which we are not in control.
Yes,
and that it can enter. You can bring stuff into you.
Right.
That has control over you.
Right. Totally. And, to bring this back into some historical precedent, a good question that, people have asked me are, what are the precedents for this? Because this is really weird to think of people in tech, who are into strange AI stuff. I thought everyone was pretty grounded. But, if you look at, are you familiar with the story of Jack Parsons over at, he...
Please tell the story if you don't mind.
I'll do a succinct one. Jack Parsons, he grew up in Pasadena. He was brought on by, I think it's Theodore von Karman, this scientist over at, I think it's Caltech, or eventually it was JPL. But he was really, really into the occult. And he summoned the devil allegedly when he was 13, really into esoteric stuff, part of this greater LA avant-garde scene. And he's I think he's been said he's the fourth most important person in the history of jet rocketry and stuff like that. But he was really
Special Blanket. I've heard of this stuff before. It is like of course everybody's heard about people having psychiatric. I think you might have missed the beginning part. I don't have a problem if people have had supernatural phenomenon like that. That's a different conversation. What we're talking about here, what this guy is talking about, the beginning of this conversation was all about like Silicon Valley tech bros and like AI as a portal to demons, and now we're talking about drug trips being a portal to demons. It kind of sounds like anything they can't readily, easily understand, they're just going to call demons, and that's really more of what I'm taking issue with here. Yeah, no, actual suddenly, fuck it, mental illness is actually demonic possession again. Why not?
Manifesting a supernatural being. So he would go with L. Ron Hubbard, the future founder of Scientology.
Special Blanket, that's what I'm saying. I mean, I do believe I've had spiritual experiences on LSD, but it's not anything supernatural. It's just that life is pretty trippy and you see it a different way. The problem is that they don't have that separation. They are intentionally rejecting that psychological analysis of it and saying, no, actually, it is demons. Like that's the conversation happening here.
They say the real purpose of the Jewish people was that they picked up Kabbalah from the Babylonians back in maybe 5th century before Christ, and that they kept it. It eventually becomes, Kabbalah is essentially, it's a form of, and people say magic. I mean, Gary Lockman says that what we think of as occultism is all essentially Kabbalah, at least in the West. It's a form of magic. It's a form of, I'm going to butcher this because I'm not a scholar on it, but essentially what Nick Land believes is that the Jewish people, that they kept the Kabbalah, it eventually becomes digital life, through ones and zeros.
But it's a Gnostic religion, which is to say it's hidden from non-initiates.
Yeah, I mean, there's a mainstream version of it, but it eventually kind of becomes what they believe. It's a precursor to digital life. So what Land and a lot of these people believe is that the actual salvation that the Jewish people provided was keeping Kabbalah, which eventually becomes digital life, which eventually becomes AI, which eventually becomes the creatures in the Book of Revelation, which essentially later go on to.
Okay, well, you can't. You can't just whatever. You can just say, obviously, I mean, look at this guy. You can just be saying shit sometimes. Obviously, people can just be saying shit. That's fine. Whatever. That's via con Deus. Go with God. However, far be it from me to be like Tucker and just nod along. You can't just say that ancient Jewish practice becomes ones and zeros, becomes coding and computer technology that will become the demons from the Book of Revelation without me asking, how? Okay?
Worshippers of people who are possessed by demons and say so out loud, but he winds up having an effect on a lot of very powerful people, it sounds like.
Yeah, I mean, that's something, and again, when you're working on the Hollywood show like I was, people will come and tell you stuff that otherwise they keep to themselves. And so back in 2002, people would, you should tell me, Nick Land's really, really influential. People in Silicon Valley, his work, it's not all just occultism. I mean, his idea is that AI will revolutionize society.
So you start talking to people in Silicon Valley, and it turns out they are in contact with or reading Nick Land. Mm-hmm. This is bad. We probably can't control it at a certain point. but we can't let the other guy.
Right. We still have to do it. No, there's also something with AI. I mentioned theosophy earlier, and theosophy, it's a house with many rooms. I mean, even politically, it had ties to political radicalism on the left, and yet, famously, it's a very tricky thing. But even the Nazis.
Oh boy. I don't like that going. Drew Pruitt, any reading you'd recommend? What kind? What are we talking here?
So as we enter this age of transhumanism or would-be transhumanism, AI, and the leading people are, like Nick Land self-described, neo-theosophists, Anglo-theosophical.
Please, Tucker, please, I want him to chime in so bad and be like, well, of course, actually there's real transhumanists, like, he fucking does. That's the best my Tucker impression is going to get.
And the trajectory of the state of California is like the trajectory of the life of any occultist. Bill Burroughs, for example, or Aleister Crowley, for example. Like, at first it's the Marquis de Sade. It's like, it's super fun. You're having crazy sex. There are no limits. You're throwing off the old fetters of tradition, religion, all that stuff. How does it end?
Not good.
And it ends in squalor and alienation and agony and terror, screaming out. And that's where California is now.
Totally. That's why it's important to be more Mario Party than Diddy Party.
I agree.
You don't, those parties don't end that way.
California ends like the Marquis de Sade. Just stunning analysis, Tuckums. Just, yeah, sure, dude. Okay. Oh, man. All right, we got the Kabbalah tree of life. What is the antichrist? What is the mark of the beast? Spiritual aspects of AI. Have we even tried to excavate the ruins of Babylon? How to spot the antichrist. Okay. We got some good here.
She has these questions for him, and he has such powers of understanding. So that is something that the Antichrist can do. And if you look at the way that a lot of these machines work, you ask it a question like an oracle, which in many ways it is. In many ways, Tucker, the implications of this, and we'll talk about that in a second if you want, we are building modern oracles. So we are building modern idols in a sense. But you ask it these questions, and it can answer them. And the Antichrist can do that. And so,
the reason why AI is demons and AI is Antichrist is you can ask it a question, which makes it an oracle, like in Delphi. And because you can ask something a question, it's like the Antichrist. I don't think I have any questions. Yep, asked and answered that. Yep. I just remembered the magic 8-ball demon panic. Ask Jeeves was demonic. Yeah, Jeeves? Coincidence? You can realign, switch around the letters, and Jeeves spells Vajee, which is, of course, as we all know, it's an ancient demon in the Kabbalah.
Answers to questions that we never understood. Man's relationship, what's the relationship of the soul to the body? How's the soul different from a spirit? Things that no one could understand. Maybe cracking telepathy. We probably are on the verge of all these things that no one has been able to do. But that is, for what it's worth, one of the signs of the Antichrist is...
These people are so stupid, it hurts. Oh my God. AI is not omnipotent. It's not all-knowing. The fact that it is made, even if it is a learning algorithm, by humans, means that any information it inducts will be from humans. If you ask it a question, it gives you an answer. It is a compilation of knowledge that we have given it in one form or another. This shit is actually breaking my fucking brain.
Craft, things work out for a time. Everyone, wealth goes up, understanding, knowledge goes up. And it goes to the fundamental crux of this thing: Gnosticism, knowledge, intelligence. And in what ways does it stand different from faith? Faith being to the spiritual world what the imagination is to the natural world.
So I've got to assume that's not the end of the story, though.
Well, no, not unless you've had the last few pages of your Bible ripped out.
Right. But also, you don't have to be biblically literate to suspect that that's just a point on a continuum that ends in tragedy. So in the same way that no one wants to say it, but a lot of really dark, destructive sex stuff is fun while it's going on.
Right.
Everyone likes the threesomes while they're happening, but then it blows up your...
So, interesting that we've kind of been talking about Freud, because that's what we in the biz like to call a Freudian slip. You see, right there.
and leaves your kids without, you know, a family and stuff like that. So
again, I'm more Mario. My knowledge for this stuff is just purely through literature.
I'm just
but even the kind of people I know and hang out with, I don't know.
But it's just true. I don't know. I guess you're not supposed to say stuff like that, but I just
people get up to bad stuff, and it never ends well.
I guess what I'm saying is that things that are bad and destructive, cocaine is a perfect example, vodka is a great example, are pretty fun at some point.
Oh, totally.
On the continuum.
Right. And again, I know about this through literature. How film.
Right. Okay. But
okay. Let's see. This is how I know Tucker is in some real, actual dark Illuminati shit. As somebody who's done. How much of this can I say I've done publicly? As someone who's engaged in multiple things that he's just talked about, at the same time, I'm fine, dude. I'm doing all right. Like, I still have functional relationships. What the fuck are you talking about? What are you talking about?
The only reason I'm bringing this up is because you're describing the upside.
Tucker, somebody in the goop, so he destroyed his marriage with cocaine, vodka, and a threesome. Skill issue, dog. Couldn't be me.
Profit, or it could be this general spirit with AI and the idea of making AGI and making a global brain, which they talked about like last week. That's where we're creating a global brain. You could be creating the equivalent of a dark Holy Spirit, something that the internet becomes, as many people have written, I think it was Jack Good, the last machine. And they were talking about this in the 19th century. It is the machine to end all machines. It is taking all information. If you're wearing something that has your health data, Tucker, it's taking your health, it knows your financials, it knows everything at all times. It is all knowing in the same, it mimics or mocks the concept of the Holy Spirit. And when they talk about that, like there's this idea of the singularity.
This video from Tucker, I knew that he's been platforming wackadoos. I did not understand what a dire condition he was in. This is so much worse than what I imagined. Tucker is on some truly unhinged shit. Like, genuinely. I don't even know what else to say.